grassroots.
Fantastic.
Strategy. Yeah.
Well, I feel like we're the grassroots media. We're glad to have you aboard. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, totally. We're excited. Sitting here with City Council candidate Jillian Johnson. She is running for Durham City Council. She was just telling us she has not held elected office or ever attended a party meeting, but she's a mother of two. She's got lots of experience in the nonprofit world and what seems like a very strong vision for Durham. Although it doesn't break down into a simple stump speech, tell us a little bit about how you got on this path. I mean, what made you decide to run for city council, or why are you here today?
Yeah, so I've been living in Durham for 16 years, and over that time I've really seen the city change a lot. And I think some of those changes have been really great. A lot of the development in downtown has really benefited a whole lot of people. The increase in small businesses and really the vibrancy and bringing people downtown, I think has been really fantastic. And I know that lots of folks in the city have been working hard to get that to happen over the years. At the same time, though, I think we're seeing a lot of issues in neighborhoods surrounding downtown related to the revitalization that's happening here.
Right.
Rising home prices, rising rents, a lot of folks who are being put in the position where the neighborhoods that they have lived in and really been involved in for a long time are transitioning around them into areas where they can't afford or where the culture has just changed so much that they don't feel like it's their community anymore. So I feel like we're really at a turning point now where we have to make some decisions as a community, and we need to really be bold and be honest about where we want Durham to go. And do we want to grow our city in a way that's inclusive, that brings people in, that really harnesses the energy and the creativity of all of Durham's residents? Or are we going to continue developing into two separate and unequal cities where some people, where a privileged few are benefiting from all of the change and the revitalization that's happening, but there's a whole group of people who are being left out? So my goal and my hopes as a member of City Council would be to really bridge those divides and make sure that the benefits and the investment and all this energy that's coming to Durham is really shared broadly among all of our residents and not just a privileged few people.
Well, it's a super important mission, obviously, and it's some really powerful language to say, two separate but unequal Durhams, because people know what that reference is. And in some ways, I think it mimics some of the larger debate going on in America where we're talking about, 1% versus 99%. And if Durham's symbolic, and this is a forefront issue here, are people responding? How do you feel like your message is going?
Yeah, I think people are responding really, really strongly. I mean, just looking around, everyone has experienced what's happening in Durham. Folks who've been living here even for just 5 years have seen their neighborhoods
massive change. Yeah.
Dramatically, for sure. And downtown especially, we're seeing a lot of change. And I think that for folks who do social justice work and who are organizers and who care about community and really want to see Durham thrive, it's been something that's been on everyone's minds.
Yeah. Who are you working with in the social justice world, and what are you hearing about these kind of issues?
So for the last few years, I've been working mostly with youth organizations. I work out of the Durham Solidarity Center, which is in the basement of the Hayti. And it's a nice little co-working space where we...
We love co-working, sitting here in Mercury Studio.
Yeah, much smaller than this one. We just have a few folks, but we provide space and resources for smaller community groups that don't have their own offices. And we are able to provide meeting space at the Hayti also for those groups for larger events. And I work for a nonprofit called Southern Vision Alliance, which has two main projects: the Youth Organizing Institute, which works with folks from 13 to 18 on youth leadership development, and particularly around school push-out issues in the school-to-prison pipeline.
That's crucial.
Organizing young folks to be informed and be aware of those systems that are working in their lives. And then we have a group for older folks from 18 to 25 target age range called Ignite NC, which works on civic engagement and voter outreach and works on college campuses, focuses on a lot of the HBCU campuses in the state, and really organizes young people around whatever issues they feel are important in their communities. So we've done work on student loan debt, on Black Lives Matter, on just a variety of things that folks feel are critical in the particular context that they're in.
How's it going? I mean, when you say we're at a tipping point, sadly, I've heard a lot of people say in some ways it's too late for Durham. We're already gentrified, and we have a socially liberal but economically conservative population and government that says, well, at least gay marriage is working out. People are probably going to legalize pot. What can we do about income inequality? Too bad.
Yeah, no.
I mean, do you feel like a tipping point to me says that the issue is still in play? It's not over.
I do think it's still in play. I think we still have time, and I think that having a really strong advocate for these economic injustice issues on city council would be critical in moving forward.
For sure.
I think the city has a lot of things that they can do, especially around affordable housing in this downtown area. For example, we own land. The city owns land in downtown.
Right.
That could be used for affordable housing. There was a meeting last week at the city council work session where Durham CAN, which is a really amazing organization of congregations, associations, and neighborhood, which is what CAN stands for, brought out their people in force. I mean, it was an amazing showing of community support for affordable housing. Yeah, and when I first got there, I could not get in the door. Like, it was just, it was packed. It was great.
Oh, right.
And really advocated hard for using some land right near the bus station for affordable housing.
Right. I know the land you're talking about. It's been a big issue what's going to happen, and I think people were at first shocked when Mayor Bell made a proposal about that land becoming public housing. So what's going on?
So I think there's one distinction I want to draw, which is public housing and affordable housing. So the
crucial.
public housing is for very low income people. Affordable housing is targeting people around this particular development would target people at 60% of the area median income, which for a family of four is about $40,000 a year.
In Durham.
Yeah. So we're not talking about a lot of money, but we're not talking about people who are facing severe material poverty. We're talking about teachers and firefighters and civic,
baristas and self-employed coworkers.
Exactly. So those are the folks that we would really be targeting with this development. And the city is committed to having 15% of the housing within a half mile of the light rail stations, a couple of which will be in downtown, be affordable to folks at 60% of the AMI. And right now there are 0 units of housing in downtown that are affordable for
every time I look at one of those new places, it's $1,500, it's $1,700. It seems to be marketed at a very high top end. I don't know, like San Francisco prices. I mean, I moved here from California, but part of why I did is because I couldn't afford that.
Completely. And it's amazing. Every time I look at the prices for a new development, I'm shocked all over again. I mean, it's just jaw-dropping rates for some of these places. And yeah, I mean, I think folks who are moving here from California, from New York, from places with much higher costs of living, for a while have been part of, why companies were able to demand these high prices, because someone moving from New York saw an apartment for $1,000 a month and was like, that's a great price, not realizing, what the market was here. But now I feel like we actually are kind of moving in that direction where we're having these really high priced apartments and we're not really reserving anything for, just ordinary working people and working families. So the city taking a key role on building that development that's been proposed and building more affordable housing on city land, I think is something that could make a real difference for Durham in terms of people being able to afford to stay in the city.
And do you see a possibility that we end up with the kind of city council that does that?
Absolutely. I think that Steve Schul has been a real leader on that, and I think that he has gotten the support of pretty much every PAC that's come out with endorsements so far. So I'm really confident that he's going to stay in.
Right.
And I think that folks have been really responding really strongly to my campaign. We got a really good ground game. We got a lot of folks out knocking doors.
Josh said he saw more of your signs than anyone else's anywhere, which I said that's impressive. We're getting the word out. Really trying to go out and meet the community. I've been going door knocking for the last month, twice a week, in communities around Hayti and around Central. How does that feel? I know I've personally knocked a lot of doors. I work for the U.S. Census, and I'm bilingual in Spanish, so they kept me on right to the end. And to me, it was an unbelievably empowering experience to knock doors in America and realize that Americans don't think about government the way, like Soviet Russia or Nazi Germany or so many places in the world, Venezuela, where if someone knocks on your door from the government, it's a fearful experience, it's an attack, it's what am I doing? Americans were like, oh, you're sweating, come in, have some tea, how about a lemonade? Let me tell you about my life and my family for the census. So how's the response going for you when you're walking around Durham?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not from the government, so any people who would be
But you're running for government office.
I am running for government office. I think that...
I mean, people's like for the politicians in today's day and age is almost zero. They have so few of them have favorable ratings, even our mainstream candidates,
So true. And I feel like I have a lot of conflicting feelings about that word politician.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, I've had a really good experience going out meeting folks. We have been trying to meet people who are high propensity voters, so people who vote in all the municipal elections already, and who are leaders in their communities, so people who will get out and spread the word.
Right.
And I have had several people invite me in and, give me water and tell me that, hey, I saw your sign and it's good to meet you, and here's what I think about, what I care about in the city.
Right. What are you hearing that they think about and care about? What's on people's minds over in that area especially?
Yeah, definitely gentrification. A lot of folks are really concerned about the way that Durham is developing and making sure that that development continues in a way that is more inclusive and really reaches out to folks who have not been involved and feel like they're missing out on the benefits of that development.
That's also so interesting.
Yeah, I think that it's something that really hits home for a lot of folks in a lot of different parts of the city, and I don't think that every part of Durham needs to develop in the same way.
Right.
For example, there's folks, out in North Durham who are very concerned about increasing commercial development in their neighborhoods.
Sure.
And then there's folks out in East Durham who need grocery stores and need pharmacies and need basic services. So I think that we need a holistic strategy to really, focus on bring everyone's needs to the table and focus on building solutions that work for everybody.
Yeah, I love that psychology too, though, because I think a lot of people simply look at certain communities and think, oh, policing is always the big issue. It's always crime, and the first thing that came to your mind talking to the people was economics, and that it really matters to people what the cost of living is, how the jobs work. I mean, I would imagine we're on the transportation and the busing issues all the time, because to us it doesn't seem, in a situation of separate but two unequal Durhams, the Bull City connector sure doesn't look like data to me, and I see which way which one runs, and it.
Yeah, I think that the transit issues are critical, the jobs issues are critical, and they all very directly influence the issue of crime. When you have a city that's economically strong, where folks have jobs, where folks have low-cost transportation to get to those jobs, and where kids have social and recreational and educational opportunities that they find rewarding, that's going to reduce crime.
For sure.
Folks who don't have those opportunities and who don't feel that sense of community are the people who are more likely to turn to criminal activity for ways to, provide for their families, or just because they don't see other options for themselves. So I really think that one way, they're all interconnected. I think we tackle crime through an economic development strategy that really lifts up the voices of folks in those communities that have the most direct experience and can tell us more, most effectively what their people need.
Yeah, and are we getting some of that? I know Charlie Reese brought up the Holton Career Resource Center when we were talking to him, and I had actually just sat out there for a meeting between the citizens and the police, where Chief Lopez and Nia Burney from Spirit House and various other people were on a panel, and people use that as an example of sort of like, well, they put all that money into the Holton Career Resource Center, and it's this big old building, and the community doesn't use it, and so I don't think it's necessarily that our current city council hasn't tried, but I think there's certain things where you could really point out an unequal Durham and say they've been ineffective. So what is it that you see that you're hearing, or you think that you can do, or that gives you hope that we're still at this tipping point and we can do something effective?
I think it's all about priorities and where do we have a limited amount of money. We have a growing tax base in Durham. We're lucky in that.
For sure.
A lot of cities are losing folks and we're gaining folks. So I think that we are getting more resources, and we can count on more resources coming into the community over the next few years.
Provided we don't pre-give them tax breaks to come into the community, right?
There is that problem. And I think that we can push harder. I think that for a long time, Durham's leaders saw Durham as a place where we really had to incentivize businesses and folks to come into the city. So we were giving away these tax breaks, we're giving away these development incentives, these jobs creation incentives, et cetera. Now I think, Durham has arrived in a way that is not, it's not how things were 10 years ago. We don't have to just give away all of these tax revenues. Folks want to be here. We are desirable. So I think we need to shift how we're thinking about what we're giving away, and, still be bringing development to the city, but how are we doing that in ways that really still preserve the city's ability to get things done and do public projects? with regard to Holton specifically, I think that what I've heard is that a lot of the programs there are not free, and so and that there aren't as many programs as there need to be, and then a lot of the programs you have to pay for, and for a lot of folks, that's
Who gets
just not
that? Are we
doable.
paying the city when we're
The
paying
city
for it?
Parks and Rec. So and again, priorities. Parks
Right.
and Rec serves a critical function in our community, providing children, especially young people, with recreational opportunities, and also just for people in general. Ball fields, soccer games, like that. The health of our community is really dependent on having those open spaces and outdoor resources, and I think that's something that the city should prioritize, and that a lot of those programs, if we put money where it needs to be, those programs could be free.
Totally agree. Have you had an opportunity to interact much with Durham Parks and Rec? What do you think?
My only interactions with Parks and Rec have been, as a consumer. I visit.
Right, you have
parks.
2 kids, right?
I have 2 kids, so we go to the park all the time. We live in a great area where we're walking distance from 4 parks.
Awesome.
So we kind of switch it up and go to different ones, which is great. And we've hosted events in the parks and have gone to,
Because I
so
feel
that's
like you could kind of chase that the same way you could chase transportation with a separate but unequal. There's some gorgeous parks in Durham, and there's some parks that look like nobody looked at that park in an awful long time. Still got a jungle gym and some pavement that you can land on underneath it.
Oh,
which,
God.
That kind of attitude of like, well, this park, important. This park, well, what neighborhood is that? I don't even see that on my map. And
Yep.
I don't know that, I don't know exactly how that all works and how the funding works and how much of it is private, people helping out, because I have seen sort of those public-private partnerships in Durham be really effective.
Yeah, there's a park right around the corner from me on Carroll Street that just had a renovation that was partially funded by some nonprofit private money.
Is that Carroll over by Birch?
No, it's Carroll by Moorhead, just north of
Oh,
Moorhead.
okay.
Yeah. The Birch Avenue Park is beautiful.
Right,
we
right.
love that park. We're walking
Yeah.
distance to that one too. Great
Yeah.
for toddlers.
Another one that they
beautiful
turned
place.
around, I think, with some public-private partnership
Okay,
help there.
great. Yeah. So and I've been to some parks, especially when you show up early in the morning on a Saturday or a Sunday, where it's obvious that folks have been partying there the night before, and people kind of leave out, some trash and stuff. So I think that, really prioritizing those public resources and making sure that they're being maintained, and that that we're really making sure that in every community that kids have access to a nice park.
Yeah, it really points out the duality of our responsibility too, though, because it's not the city doing the littering. It's us. It's the community,
yeah,
right?
and really having like a sense that this is a resource for everyone,
Right.
so that folks want to take care of it.
Yeah.
And there's a trash can right there. Like,
Exactly.
why is your bottle? And I don't want to get into responsibility politics and like a lot of blaming people.
Yeah, no, but
For conditions, but yeah, there's a simple step, and a lot of people do actually. There's park cleanup days in lots of neighborhoods in Durham where folks will go out and clean up creeks and clean up parks and really
right,
get
yeah,
involved.
we do a
So
great job of that,
bringing more
in
people
various
into that
places.
kind of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you're ideally positioned to have some of those conversations and to
Thank you.
network between people who are part of this, non-governmental, nonprofit world and city government. I want to give you one more, not necessarily a layup, but just to let the people think about who you are kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell us about motherhood and your 2 children and the kind of lessons that you might take from that into politics? Because I think when people look at your route, it's obviously less than traditional, but people are far more willing than they were 20 or 30 or even 10 years ago to accept that there are valuable lessons from motherhood that can be applied to politics. So what would you say that you've learned in that way?
Well, I think in particular in this moment around Black Lives Matter, having 2 Black sons, I've been thinking a lot about motherhood and parenting in our current social and political context. And I think that a lot of why I do the work that I do and why I want to continue to do this work on part of the city council is really to build a city and to build a community where I want to raise my children, and where I think everyone would be happy to raise kids and expect that their kids can prosper and thrive and have what they need. So I think that there's a lot of ethical consideration. I think in being a parent, I think about things from the perspective of someone who really wants their kids to succeed, and everyone wants their kids to succeed, and everyone wants their kids to have access to the educational opportunities that they need to succeed and to the, social opportunities that they need. And so I feel like I'm able to, take what I want from my own children and my own family and think about, providing that on a larger scale to everyone in Durham, and really, making sure that, parents in Northeast Central Durham have the same faith and confidence in what the city is doing for them as parents in Trinity Park or in Watts Hillendale.
I love it. I'm a believer. I think that's sort of the reason motherhood matters. I really believe that that's, if we want to change things on a much larger scale, that might be how we do it. I don't know. I grew up in the era of like Sting and him saying if the Russians love their children too, obviously there'd be no nuclear war. Why would we have a war if both sides love their children? And, some of those...
That's a terrible thing to say.
Right? But some of those really simple, basic ideas of like, we wouldn't fight war if we thought about the children. Who wants to send their children to war? No one.
But we aren't, the community, the people, the parents of people who are going to war aren't making that decision. Most of the time it's, folks in power in the government who aren't considering the ordinary people and how their lives are going to be destroyed. And I mean, this is way beyond the scope of city council, but, we have
small.
This huge refugee crisis now.
Yeah.
Where, all of these decisions that are being made on these global levels, you can see the impact on just ordinary people.
Yep.
I think that there's a lot, everyone wants to do well, everyone wants their kids to do well, and we, there's a commonality in being human that we can draw on and really build for justice with.
I'm a believer. We start with that commonality and we build outward from the home through the community to the city, the state, and the whole world if we can. So I really appreciate it. I hope you have a tremendous campaign. Enjoy.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. It was terrific. I love to have these conversations. We're delighted to talk to City Council candidate Jillian Johnson. Durham, we curate your city.